If you couldn't tell by the majority of the videos on this channel so far, especially the solo projects that I've done, I really love anime. It's one of my favorite mediums of entertainment out there, if not my number one. I spend a lot of time watching it, talking about it, both with friends and here on the channel. It's had a big impact on my life. I mean, a lot of things have. I've always been someone who's pretty easily affected by entertainment and storytelling overall. It plays a big part in shaping who I am and my ideas and motivations about the world. But there's something special about anime to me. Something that goes beyond the over-the-top action and crazy worlds and characters. Something beyond the limitless art and imagination that goes into it. Something deeper that impacts me more in anime than in any other medium. And that's the way that it portrays emotion. See, anime takes an honest look at feelings. It embraces emotion to the fullest, something that I'd never seen in any art form before. Not that there aren't examples of really emotion-provoking and heartfelt scenes in books and games and movies, but there's something about the unlimited scope of anime that helps in this department as well, that pushes it to the next level of what a person can experience. Anime doesn't hold back in anything it does, and I think it lends itself really well when it comes to the topic of feelings and emotion. And that's what I want to talk about today. Some of this is going to be intense, painful, and some of it really hopeful and happy. Like our lives and everything going on in the world, anime is a mixed bag of both. Moments of intense joy and triumph mixed with utter despair and sadness. If you've watched anime, you've felt it all at this point. But in my own way, I want to take a dive into what I think makes anime special in this regards. What it does that I think sets it apart from other forms of storytelling and expression. And give some examples of some series and scenes that I think do it really well. I love anime. I love this art form. I love the way it makes me feel. And if I, in my ranting and rambling way, can lend something to the discussion of it and maybe to your own thoughts and feelings about yourself, then that's what I hope to do. I think a good jumping off point for our discussion would be the lack of limitations that anime has on it, compared to other mediums at least. Especially in regards to live action projects and even really video games to a point. I mean, there's the obvious that it costs way more to do crazy shit in a live action project. I mean, even in a video game, having to do mechanics and the player interactions is going to cost you more than basic animation. Not to say that you can't tell the difference when an animated project has way more money put into it. There's a reason that anime films tend to look better than anime series. It's simple cost. But it's not just the scope of what an anime can do that those limitations being taken away make an impact. Obviously, they're going to be able to do crazier fights, be more outlandish, do things that a human person or even live action CGI could never accomplish. But I think it leaks in to the actual story and dynamics itself, because our sense of disbelief is kind of more suspended when it comes to anime. How dramatic and over the top the characters are, how fully they embrace the portrayal of emotion and their feelings and their actions in the series. we let more slide when it comes to anime. Seeing and watching, hearing live action people scream and get into it to that extent, it doesn't feel realistic. Whereas when you're already in the world of an anime that clearly isn't real, you're able to kind of buy into those over-the-top expressions, down to even just the way they interact with their friends and the villains and the world around them. I think that suspension of belief goes a long way in helping portray the things we're going to talk about. Lack of limitation might as well be the definition of the first anime I want to talk about, and that being, in my completely objective opinion, one of the greatest anime of all time. A classic that is unlike anything else. Not just an anime, but storytelling in general. It's crazy, wacky, and it's fucking batshit weird. And that would be Fooly Cooly. Now, Fooly Cooly tackles a part of feelings and emotion that I've never seen anything else tackle in quite the same way. And that's puberty and all the things that go along with that period in a person's life. For most of us, puberty is a really crazy time. I mean, you're suddenly horny all the time. Everyone's fucking attractive. You're overcome with all these new feelings and emotions just overwhelming you, and it's tough. You went from being an mostly innocent child, who was more, probably, unless you had a tough upbringing, a little bit more carefree. You weren't thinking about the existential crises of what you're gonna do and be in the future. You were just existing, and you were okay with that. But suddenly, everything feels so goddamn important. Everything in life, your social status in school, the people around you, suddenly your whole identity and confidence can be based on what other people think. Something you didn't give a damn about before. It's a really confusing and weird time that's hard to put into words. Which is why Fooly Cooly doesn't really try to put it into words. Instead, Fooly Cooly is a show you connect to through feeling, through interacting with the crazy stuff going on. I mean, in what other example, which there probably are some and I'm not thinking of them, but in how many shows do you have humans that represent every bit of your hormones and angst that you're dealing with? That's Fooly Cooly. That's a story about growing up and dealing with the craziness that is that time period in your life. It's about stepping up to the plate, having to face head on the situations around you. A lot of it out of your control. You didn't ask for these feelings. You didn't ask for life to be so confusing and difficult. And yet it is. That's just the realistic part about it. Life is confusing. It's tough. But Fooly Cooly kind of sets the groundwork for something I want to talk about through this, and that's that it's okay to not have a clue what the fuck is going on. Nobody else does either, especially in points in your life like that. There's no manual of how to grow up, how to be a good person, how to find your way and figure out who you're gonna be. It's all a process, something you have to go through. But the important part is that you go through it, and Fooly Cooly serves as a template to know that that's enough. It's enough just to experience that crazy, chaotic point of your life. And that even when life is shitty, and honestly, even when you're a little shitty, I mean, we all get angry. We all get upset. We all have moments where we kind of break a little bit and act in ways that we wouldn't normally. We say things that we don't mean. We can be hurtful, spiteful. But so can everyone else. And while that doesn't excuse or make being an asshole okay, it does put it into honest terms that that's just how it is. We're all gonna have moments like that. And Fully Cooley says that that's okay. We're all fucking assholes. We're all crazy. But what's important is going through it, trying to be better, accepting that growing up is a process, and that's just what you gotta do. Speaking of other topics that are kind of uncomfortable to talk about, it leads me into a recent anime that I really love, and that's Wonder Egg Priority. I've already done a video on it, giving me my reactions to the beginning. And as I've got to explore the next couple episodes, my love and appreciation for the show has only grown. This show is a deep dive into the worst of our feelings. To put it simply, it's a show about regret and remorse. Because what happens when the bad things going on in your life are in part because you were unable to act, because there was either nothing you could do or nothing you did do. And when tragedy comes of it and you lose someone important to you, where do you go from there? How do you cope and move on with that? And the show hasn't given its exact answer just yet, but it's not afraid to touch the darker subjects like cutting and self-harm in general, subjects like knowing that things kind of were your fault and that you have no choice left except to take responsibility for not being there when you wanted to be, for letting a friend down and losing them, and having to figure out how to move on with your life now that the person you care about most can no longer be in it. It's a show facing its own personal demons and reflecting them back at you, the viewer, because we've all done shitty things. We've all felt remorse and guilt, and it weighs heavy on a lot of us. I know it does for me. But an important thing that Wonder Egg does that I love about anime in general is, once again, it's not afraid to say that it's okay to feel that, to go through this remorse and guilt, to know that in some part you were to blame, and it makes sure you know you have to accept it. The show doesn't hold back at letting our main character, know that she failed. She wasn't there for her friend when she should have been, and in part it's her fault. But that doesn't mean that her life is forfeit, that she should isolate and just give up on the world. Our mistakes are lessons to be learned, and we have to come to some kind of reconciliation for them. We have to be able to take those mistakes and move forward, both for ourselves and the new people in our lives. To look back at the past, to look at the darkest parts of ourselves, to our own inner demons, and keep going. To battle back against them by moving forward and doing our best to be better. Anime really is about so much more than cool fights and fan service. It isn't just wacky characters and absurd adventures. It's a spotlight directed back at us, exposing the best and worst parts of being human, of the experience. Whether it's a classroom full of kids who've been given up on, finding someone who cares about them and working just to improve themselves, and that being enough. Whether it's a story about dealing with loss, about what it means to have to move on, and coming together, drifting back into one another's lives, and all grieving together, and knowing that it's okay to feel that pain, that you don't have to push away that side of you, no matter how painful it is. Whether it's a story about death, living with dying, knowing that your end is near and nothing you can do will change that it all ends the same way. Yet that's no excuse for not living life to the fullest, to not being you and getting to enjoy it. You deserve to enjoy life. That's something we see in I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. A beautiful story about living with the fact that you only have so much time. Anime tackles so much. I mean, look to A Silent Voice, a story that deals so much with bullying and the isolation that having a disability can create. We see our character, the opening scene, our character is standing on a bridge, been counting down on the calendar to the day that he's gonna take himself out of this world. It's a story of being unable to handle mistakes and then figuring it out, finding redemption and forgiveness even when you've been a piece of shit. If I can somehow get more personal for a second, part of the reason this video and anime means so much to me is my own struggles with mental health and emotion. I've been in the darkest places I didn't think I would come back from. I've had that feeling of being 8 miles underwater with no chance of getting back to the surface. I know what it's like to feel completely alone and be on that border of giving in to despair. It's tough, and I'm sorry to every single person who's had to go through that too. But what I also know is that that feeling and state is never permanent. There's always a light and a way out. Hope just days or months away. And no matter how long it feels and how far gone you feel, you always have a chance to get back to the surface. My friends and family take plenty of credit in pulling me out when I'm low. But so does anime. So does storytelling in general. That's why I love it so much. Because sometimes we need that reminder that hope is on its way. That if we just keep pushing forward and keep going and growing and taking it day by day, that eventually we're gonna find our way. A line I really like is from a show called Gurren Lagann. If you've watched it, you probably know exactly what I'm gonna reference, but I have a special connection to it from my friend constantly quoting it to me. Believe in the me that believes in you. And later, when our character has faced his growth, he's overcome his own insecurities and doubts, he's getting to a point of change, it's repeated back to him a little bit differently, with believe in the you that believes in yourself. I hope you all reach that point where you can believe in your own journey and your own abilities. But until that day comes, know that I believe in you. And that wherever you are now, whatever it is you need to do, Even if it's just relax and watch some anime. That's okay. Growing isn't a constant battle. It's keeping going the best you can every day. I love all of you and hope you find joy in the days to come. Until next time, I'm That Hero Fury, and I'll see you soon.
Tell them all I know now, shout it from the rooftops, write it on the skyline, all the end is gone now. Tell them I was happy, and the heart is broken, all my stars are open. Tell them all I loved what I've been, impossible, impossible, impossible. Take caution when it comes to love.